The lion won't sleep tonight. 'Cause we woke now, and we woke now. I said the lion won't sleep tonight. 'Cause we woke now, and we woke now. They want us to sell our souls to barter profit. Like God's property, it's hard to market. So we steady to aim, keep your eyes on target. Cause when you got to drive, yeah, they'd rather you park it. But I don't valet, you ain't getting these keys. I'm keeping closed hands, I'm on bended knee. I'm just a reflection, dealing with 8 sections. Art mixed with life, you can feel the convection. Your lion won't sleep tonight. 'Cause we woke now, and we woke now. The lion won't sleep tonight. 'Cause we woke now, and we woke now. I said the lion won't sleep tonight. 'Cause we woke now, and we woke now. They want us to sell our souls to barter profit. Like God's property, it's hard to market. So we steady to aim, keep your eyes on target. Cause when you got to drive, yeah, they'd rather you park it. But I don't valet, you ain't getting these keys. I'm keeping closed hands, I'm on bended knee. I'm just a reflection, dealing with 8 sections. Art mixed with life, you can feel the convection. You lie. The lion won't sleep tonight. 'Cause we woke now, and we woke now. I said the lion won't sleep tonight. 'Cause we woke now, and we woke now. They want us to sell our souls to barter profit. Like God's property, it's hard to market. So we steady to aim, keep your eyes on target. Cause when you got to drive, yeah, they'd rather you park it. But I don't valet, you ain't getting these keys. I'm keeping closed hands, I'm on bended knee. I'm just a reflection, dealing with 8 sections. Art mixed with life, you can feel the convection. Your lion won't sleep tonight. 'Cause we woke now, and we woke now. I said the lion won't sleep tonight. 'Cause we woke now, and we woke now. I said
The same people that have stripped us of our identity and labeled us as a color have told us what it means to be black.
This gentleman right here. Huh? What happened? No, this the gentleman right here with the camera in his hand. Wave your hand. Pastor.
James Wesley Carr.
Yeah, James Wesley Carr. No. What's your name?
Oh, Kelly Richardson.
Kelly Richardson.
Pastor Kelly Richardson.
He is a great-great-grand-nephew?
Yeah.
Nephew of one of our first pastors. Yeah, matter of fact, that's his uncle right here in the corner of the actual stained glass window here to your left.
You got the eyes.
It looked just like him. Got the same eyes. Anyway, come on, guys. Come on.
That's funny.
What's that up here looking like? Look on the outside edge of the pews. Look on the outside edge of the pews where you are. You see the different markings alongside the edge of the pews? They represent the different tribes that made up our congregation back then and spoke over 6 different languages among themselves. These were small tribes enslaved by larger tribes and sold to Europeans as they came along the African coast. One of the major languages they spoke back then was that of Aramaic and also too of Hebrew, which means the writings read from bottom to top. Assalamu alaikum. Which means, peace be unto you. It's not a Muslim term. It's actually the same greeting which Christ gave into the disciples when he met them in that region. Most countries in that region read from right to left. Here in America, we read from left to right. That's why the pastors in the stained glass window up front here are going in numbers 2 through 7 from the right-hand side over to the left, to the left, to the left, to the left.
This is First African Baptist Church, the oldest black church in North America. The building, built by slaves. The gentleman that laid the first brick laid the last. The balcony hold pews that actually were built by slaves. They have the oldest information in this building. That information is written in cursive Hebrew writing.
The same people that have stripped us of our identity and labeled us as a color have told us what it means to be black.
I'm so glad you're here because you can bring great clarity. Can you tell us a little bit about the Sephardic Jews and how they were scattered because they went west?
I sure can.
Because the reason why I want to is because a lot of them, and a lot of people don't know this, are in the Caribbean.
They are.
In the islands.
And you're one of them. I know that.
I'm one of them.
I know that.
Because, you know, a lot of folk don't know that those roots are there. One of the first batches of slaves that came to Jamaica, they were the Sephardic Jews. It's documented.
And they're all over the Caribbean, South America, Central America, and even the South Central United States.
Wow.
And DNA testing is a factor in all this now.
The same people that have stripped us of our identity and labeled us as a color have told us what it means to be black.
להתחיל לאסוף את המסתננים, לא צריך לחכות לבג"ץ, לא צריך שום דבר.
אני רואה חרא מחוץ לבית שלי, יריקות, פסיכופטים, אנשים שרק מחפשים איך לרצוח אותי בעיניים שלהם, אבל אף אחד לא מאמין לנו. אנחנו גזענים כדי לרצות לשמור על החיים שלנו ועל השפיות שלנו. אז אני גאה בלהיות גזענית. אני גאה בלהיות גזענית. אם אני גזענית בשביל לשמור על החיים שלי, אז אני
את עם פושי לנסוע! את תנסוע עם פושי! לכי את והוא! תלכי מפה! תלכי! את תנסוע עם פושי! לכי! לא מתביישת!
נחשף ביערות בורקינה פאסו שבקניבלים נטו נטו. שלום למנהיג השבט קזבובו.
שלום עליכם. אברהם יצחק יעקב. יודע עברית, שולחן, חשבונית, קובי פרץ, מוטלזי, מוטאו.
מר קזבובו, כולנו כאן בישראל מופתעים ונרגשים נוכח האפשרות שתעלו ארצה.
קזבובו שמח, 2000 שנות גלות נגמר, רואים אור בקצה של מנהרה.
אתם בטוחים שאתם יהודים?
התחלנו על חנן. אם הוא שחור הוא לא יהודי?
לא בגלל שהוא שחור, הוא...
מה הוא מה?
קניבל.
ומי אתה שתגיד לו מה לאכול, אה? אם הוא קניבל, הוא לא יהודי?
אולי תבוא, תעשה אצלנו שבת?
זה לא שיש לי משהו אישי נגדכם, אבל הפלשמורה למשל תקועים.
We would not know how to live on the Sabbath if it were not for the oral law. We would not know what the laws of the dietary laws of kashrut are if it were not for the oral law. We would not know what the tefillin, what the boxes on our arms and heads that we wear every morning in our prayer service, what they're supposed to be. And in fact, all of Judaism would be completely mysterious, would be voodoo, if it were not for the oral law.
You know what you are? You're an ancient Israelite.
Ancient Israelite, that's who we are. That's who we are. So, if you give me time, if you give me time,
We don't have
so many years.
I know. Look at this. This is pages and pages of notes. And I promise we'll give more teaching. But here is my challenge to you.
All right.
I'm hearing some of your traditions. It's like the days of the Bible.
Yes.
Do you want to remain ancient Israelites or you want to be Jews? Do you want to
For the righteous, they exist in the world to come and they're rewarded. And for those whose major complexion is black are excluded from the world to come. Major complexion is black are excluded from the world to come. Major complexion is black are excluded from the world to come. For the righteous, they exist in the world to come and they're rewarded. And for those whose major complexion is black are excluded from the world to come.
And you know what else, Jim? I just want to say this to our Christian friends, you know, just to call it as it is and say it straight out, you know, you guys are worshiping one Jew. That's a mistake. You should be worshiping every single one of us, because we all die for your sins every single day. And that's exactly what's going on here. Yeah. We're all God's firstborn, and we're dying for your sins right now because the Jewish people in the land of Israel are the bulwark against the orcs. Okay? The orcs are coming not to a theater near you, but to your home.
Genesis chapter 11, verse 10. Explains the genealogy of Shem. Shem was a black man in Africa. If you repeat this fact, they can't laugh at you. If you repeat this fact, they can't laugh at you. If you repeat this fact, they can't laugh at you.
I want to say peace and blessings to everyone. My apologies for being late. Initially, I was going to just reschedule this live for next weekend because I was relaxing, you know, and recovering from earlier today. You know, we had a great service today, and we kicked off the fast today as well. So I was going to just wait till next week. So that's why I was a little late getting on here. So, but with that being said, we'll keep it simple here. Appreciate all the love and support last night. And, you know, we're just going to keep it simple, you know, keep it simple. And our thought for today is they didn't preserve anything, but corrupted everything. I'll say that again. They didn't preserve anything, but they corrupted everything. I'll say it one more time. And I hope you guys really let that sink in. They did not preserve anything, but corrupted everything. Right? And the thought, or should I say the reason why I went on and labeled it or came up with this lesson, came up with this thought, because initially I was going to go a different direction. But in this awakening, many are pushing the notion that the very people that have enslaved us, and we'll deal with that in a second, have preserved the original language, preserved the culture, preserved Torah. That's some of the things that are circulating right now. Have you guys heard that before? Have you heard that before? Type 1. Right? And so I want to just kind of address some things here, give you some clarity on that. Have you guys heard that before? If you heard what I just pointed out, type 1. If you haven't heard that, type 2. Have you heard some within this awakening teach that Israel preserved? See, family, when I hear that, I cringe, because that's still indirectly lining up with contradictory behavior, Stockholm syndrome. No, anyway. So I just wanted to cover a couple of things, because that's one of the things that we hear a lot. I teach ancient Hebrew, and I also teach the Israeli language in our assembly. And one of the behaviors that I've seen of those that learn the Israeli language from within our community, many of them eventually denied the Messiah. Because they began to learn the Israeli language that's disguised as being Hebrew, and we'll deal with that in a little bit. They have the term biblical Hebrew, but everything of even the phonology of it points over to the Israeli language, Yiddish. Same vowel points and everything. And I want to make this clear. You know, you're not learning ancient Hebrew by way of the Israeli language. You're learning the Israeli language. If you understand a guy by the name of Eliezer ben Yehuda, who is referred to as the savior, the restorer of the Hebrew per se, what he did was he put together a smorgasbord. He just was taking bits and pieces and making up words too along the way. So even what you hear them speaking over there as their language for them, many refer to it as Hebrew. But guess what, scholars? Older scholars did not refer to it as Hebrew. They referred to it as the Israeli language. But we hear this a lot. And like I said, one of the behaviors I see is that many that start learning the language, they start eventually, many of them start getting into the Talmud. And before you know it, ultimately, they deny Hamashiach. Now, when I say Hamashiach, that is the ancient pronunciation of what you would say, many would say the Messiah or Christ. See, when I teach Hebrew in our assembly, I warn them not to get, as they do research on some of these authors with their books, be careful of going to read up on some of their additional literature. And I showed them that many of them, they don't believe in the Messiah. Many of them are atheists, especially some of you guys, if you've been to seminary, you already know. Many of those professors are atheists. They don't believe what they're teaching. So this should not come as a surprise. So this is what I want to touch on a little bit tonight, so that way you guys understand. When you start seeing many of our brothers and sisters start learning the Israeli language, they begin to take on customs that they made up, customs that they created, customs that's not even biblical, starting with the Talmud, which is referred to as the oral Torah written. You guys that have been following me over the years, you guys know I go in on the Talmud. And I'll touch on just a little bit tonight. So that's the thing that I really want to, wanted you guys to really think about. And be careful when you hear, and to me, when you hear someone or anyone allude to this notion that the Israeli or that Israel, I'll just say it that way, that Israel preserved the Torah, that Israel preserved the ancient language, that Israel over there preserved the heritage of the ancient Israelites. You guys better make sure your red flag is up. You better make sure that your discernment is at its highest level when you hear that, because this what should come to your mind when you hear that.
Stranger danger! Stranger danger! Stranger danger! Stranger danger!
Come on, family. Come on, family. I've dealt with this. I've been dealing with this even before we transitioned our ministry over to where it is today. See, evangelism, that's my, my forte, coming up in the church. So I would be all out in the streets evangelizing. And trust me, I've dealt with non-Messianic Brews, non-Messianic Jews, you name it, I dealt with it. That's why I could go in and have a discussion with anyone when it comes to that. My mother, she's been practicing Judaism for quite some time, 40 plus years, almost 50 years. So I know I'm familiar with the Talmud. The things that I'm bringing out, I'm pulling it right out of her Talmud. Got a few of books over here where I can't reach it right now. Midrash, also the Midrash says on my shelf over here. I'm familiar with it. And no, I don't teach out of it. But I use it to expose and bring to you guys the deceptions behind it. To show you that when you hear guys like this rabbi here, let me let you hear what this rabbi say here. I played it in the intro when he said that without the oral law, the Torah would be voodoo. Here it is.
We would not know how to live on the Sabbath if it were not for the oral law. We would not know what the laws of the dietary laws of kashrut are if it were not for the oral law. We would not know what the tefillin, what the boxes on our arms and heads that we wear every morning in our prayer service, what they're supposed to be. And in fact, all of Judaism would be completely mysterious, would be voodoo if it were not for the oral law.
So he's saying without the Talmud, without what is supposedly the oral law, that the Torah would be voodoo. Now, when you think about that term voodoo, and he said it in a very negative, from a negative perspective, when you think of voodoo, what group of people what comes to mind? What group of people comes to your mind when you hear voodoo? He's not referring to any Caucasians, even though I can prove that the Catholic Church was behind voodoo. Anyway. But anyway, think about that, family. He said without the oral law, the Torah would be voodoo. And when you understand the so-called Talmud, the Talmud is not a document from the antiquities. The Talmud began its actual writings in like the 4th century, 3rd, 4th century. What they teach that community, right, who says that they're Ashkenazi Jews, but they're not Ashkenazis. They're not descendants of Ashkenaz. That community say that many of them say that they're Ashkenazi Jews, but they're not descendants of Ashkenaz. They just took the identity. They just took the name, because name in ancient Hebrew is Hasham. The name, Ha, right? The prefix, the, Sham, means literal name, but it also means reputation, characteristics, right? And also can be synonymous to the word kabad. I'm saying it from the ancient Hebrew, kabad, which transliterates to glory, also transliterates to fame. And you'll see the word reputation associated with that as well. So the same people, right? The same people. And this is why we hear the tongue twister right here.
So a little over 1,000 years ago, as Jewish people scattered around the world had now emigrated in Europe and now were living in the Rhineland in Germany, they looked at the name Gomer in Genesis 10, and they connected Gomer with Germany. So they took on the identity of the name Ashkenaz. It has nothing to do with Ashkenaz in the Bible, which is a descendant of Japhet. It's just a name that was taken. Okay, it's that simple. Just like my last name Brown doesn't refer to the color of my skin or anything else. It was shortened from a Russian name when my grandfather came over at Ellis Island. The name got shortened to Brown. It's just a name. That's all it is. So the idea that Ashkenazi Jews are descended from Japhet is a myth, 100% false.
Now, family, we're going to have to give him we have to put the warning, the disclaimer after what he just said.
Stranger danger! Stranger danger! Stranger danger! Stranger danger!
So when I hear him speak, it makes me think about that old line, who's on first, what's on second, third base. That's what comes to mind. So according to Professor Brown, his people, right, migrated, right? They migrated versus the ancient Israelites, they were scattered, but they migrated to the territory of the Ashkenaz, and they took on the identity. They took on the name. They took on the reputation of the Ashkenazis, which are the Scythians, which also is the Khazars. But yet we're supposed to say or embrace and believe when they say that, hey, you know what, we're actually connected to the blood descendants of the ancient Israelites. Even though DNA points to the European territories that the Khazars, or Khazars, however you want to pronounce it, it points to those territories that they conquered. This is why you have more and more younger people, in which the Jewish community, as we know them, feared, are now doing their DNA tests, and it's coming up that they are Europeans. I played some of the clips. I'm not playing it tonight. Some of them saying that they are Caucasian, unseasoned. What they mean by unseasoned, not mixed. But yet we are hearing this narrative that they preserved the original language. So let's go ahead and just do a couple of things here. Did that Israel over there, that Israeli, those people over there, did they preserve the ancient heritage of the ancient Israelites? Right? That is a question. That's the first question that I'm going to pose here tonight. Let me do something real quick. Right? Did that Israel, did they preserve the ancient language? Right? That's the question. Did they preserve the ancient language? All right. Did that Israel preserve the ancient language right here? Or actually, let me go back here. Right? Did that Israel preserve the ancient heritage of the ancient Israelites? Did that Israel preserve the ancient language of the ancient Israelites? Right? So did they preserve the culture? Let's start with understanding what preserve mean. Preserve, right? Let's see what this word means. We got preserve, but let's see what it means. This is coming from the Etymological Dictionary online. It says keep safe or free from harm. So preserve means keep safe, free from harm, act so as to ensure that something does not occur, keep, preserve, guard beforehand. We see keep safe, protect. Here's the kicker: maintain, keep in a certain quality, state of or condition. So maintain, keep in a certain quality, state, or condition. prevent from spoiling by use of preservative substance. Then we see here, keep in existence or alive. So that's the question that we have to ask here, family. That's the question that we have to ask here, family. And that's what the question I want to present to you guys. Did that Israel keep safe or free from harm the ancient heritage of the ancient Israelites? Let me say that again. See, when you say someone preserves something, you're saying that they protected, preserve, right? Servant, protect. Did they protect and keep, in other words, intact, keep intact the ancient language, the ancient writings, the heritage, the people? Did that Israel keep safe or free from harm the ancient heritage of the Israelites? Did that Israel keep safe or free from harm the ancient writings of the ancient Israelites? See, family, I know it's so hard right now because I know so many are seeking and, seeking the truth, right? But I know that it's so easy to fall in so many different holes, pit holes. So many holes that that's out there. Man, it's so easy to stumble in over some of these bumps that's on this road. So many pitfalls around us. I said pit holes, pitfalls. That's what I meant to say. Come on, family. All right. Moderators, if there's anyone that's going way out in left field, like this Brando Hawkin, what he's posting has nothing to do with what we're talking about tonight. You want to talk about somebody's chain, it says folk woke or woke folk. Come on, family. We woke now. So we're gonna I'll do it. If it's somebody that needs to be blocked, let me know and I'll do it. Because we're not tolerating foolishness like this. All right. So let's do this. I may jump around a little bit. Let me jump around a little bit because again, this is something that I put together at the last minute. This is spread out on a number of my presentations. But the first thing I want to deal with first things first, let's deal with the language. Did that Israel preserve, in other words, keep safe or free from harm the ancient language of the ancient Israelites? And I want to tell you, absolutely not. Absolutely not. Come on, family. They interpolated the language big time. They interpolated the language big time. So let's highlight a few things. Some of you guys know this, and I may have to paste some additional information here, but I don't want to go too deep here, but I want to show you, give you some solid information. Because I know, many of our brothers and sisters mean well, but family, we have to deal with the facts. As you see here, interpolation. Make a note of this word, interpolation, interpolate. It means insert something of a different nature into something else. Let me say that again. It means insert something of a different nature into something else. So when we deal with that word interpolate, can we use that word synonymously with preserve? Let me say that again. Interpolate, is the word interpolate synonymous with preserved? Because if we're going to say, not we, but if some of our brothers and sisters that are coming up with this notion, this thought, or suggesting that Israel preserved the ancient language, preserved the ancient culture, we definitely know they didn't preserve the ancient people. So how can we say they preserve something when I have proof, I have facts that they interpolated even just the language? Come on, family. Come on, families. So again, interpolate, insert something of a different nature into something else. Now, does that seem like, this word interpolate, is that a better way, a better description, a better word that we should use, that we can use about that Israel? Inserting something of a different nature into something else? Because when you get into this so-called Talmud, this is why you will hear comments like the rabbi that I played, the clip that I played of a rabbi saying that without the Talmud, the Torah would be voodoo. So now, according to that community, there's two written Torahs, because the oral Torah is supposed to be, according to them, was given to Moses at the same time when Moses was given the written Torah. So he says what they teach is that when the Most High gave Moses the Torah, he gave him two Torahs, a written Torah and an oral Torah. The word Torah simply means instructions. So they're saying that Moses was given two sets of instructions, written instructions and also instructions verbally. So according to them, because of the situation in Rome, supposedly they decided in the 3rd to 4th century to take their so-called oral Torah and write it down. So now, according to them, there's two Torahs. Come on, fam. The scriptures talks about this. Mystical scrolls. So interpolate. Make a note of that. Make a note of that. Interpolate. The church, the Catholic Church, they use syncretism. I'm not going to get into all of that tonight. So again, interpolate. Insert something of a different nature into something else. And here's the example that they gave. Illustrations were interpolated in the text. But then it goes on to say insert, in other words in a book or other text, especially in order to give a false impression as to its date. So let me introduce you guys to a couple of things within this Israeli language. Let's start with the Nikud, which is also referred to the masoretic points. Now, this is coming from the Theosophical Glossary by Helena Petrovna Blavatsky, 1892, page 208. Let's see what she says about the masoretic points. This is what she says. Masoretic points or vowels, right? Or as the system is now called Masora, from Masore or Masoreth, in other words, tradition, and Matsar, to hand down, the rabbins who who busied themselves with the Masora, hence called Masoretes, were also the inventors of the Masoretic points. So these Masoretes, they were not Israelites. Look it up. Do the research. Excuse me. These are not ancient Israelites. All right. So I want to make that clear. They were not ancient Israelites. They're not Israelites at all. But nevertheless, let me read it one more time. Masoretic points, or as the system is now called Masora from Masore, or Masoreth, tradition, Mitzar, in other words, to hand down, the rabbis who busied themselves with the Masorah, hence called Masoretes, were also the inventors of the Masoretic points, which are supposed to give the vowelless words of the scriptures their true pronunciation. So when you read or see this so-called Hebrew, it's not ancient Hebrew. It's Syriac block letters that community began to make the association. Anyway, but if you guys remember, if you guys seen some of those Hebrew words or not Hebrew words. If you guys seen some of these block letters with the points, type 1. If not, I understand if you haven't, but I'm sure you guys seen it. So you don't even have to respond to that. But I'm sure some of you guys that may have dibbled and dabbed with learning Hebrew, learning the Israeli language, learning those points, they're not easy. If you study and learn ancient Hebrew and you are studying to learn the Israeli language, you'll see there's night and day. We teach both in our assembly. 99.9% of everyone that have come through our assembly made it clear learning this Israeli language is so confusing. In ancient Hebrew, there was no vowel letters written. So when you deal with the wa, which many have made it into a vowel letter, starting with that community, and also, the Greeks and all that as well. They're the ones that inserted vowel letters, made the wa to a vowel letter. So that way you can what? Pronounce an oo sound or an o sound that they created. It makes other sounds too. But anyway, we'll get to that. Let me continue here. We're also, right, the Masoretes, they were also the inventors of the Masoretic points, which are supposed, in other words, based on, common consensus, supposed to give the vowelless words of the scriptures their true pronunciations by the addition of points representing vowels to the consonants. This was the invention of the learned and cunning rabbins of the school of Tiberias. And notice the timeline. In the 9th century of our era. We're talking the 9th century. And when it says our era, right, this is dealing with the Middle Ages. This is not dealing with the antiquities. Who by doing so have put an entirely new construction. Notice what it says here. Who by doing so have put an entirely new construction on the chief words, in other words, key words and names in the books of the Bible, is what it closes out to say. So again, make a point of this, make a note. This was the invention of the learned and cunning, craftiness. That's cunning, craftiness. The craftiness of these rabbins or rabbis, of these educators of the school of Tiberias in the 9th century. So let's go back here, right? Of Moses, the time of Moses, the writings of Moses, and made thereby confusion still more confounded. So it's saying they didn't help anything. If anything, they made things what? Confusing. 99% of any scholar that are teaching the ancient language will tell you that this so-called Hebrew of today, that Moses would not even know what it is. The ancient Israelites would not understand any of it. But yet it's taken on the language of, or the label of Hebrew. And this so-called biblical Hebrew is connected to the Israeli language because you still see those vowel points. So it says here, Moses and made thereby confusion still more what? Confounded. The truth is that this scheme has only added additional blinds to those already existing in the Pentateuch and other works. Because, you know, it's one thing already trying to get clarity. That's what this is saying. You're trying to get clarity of the writings. You're studying these writings so that way you can get clarity of what these words mean and all these different things. But they're saying they add even more confusion to it with this so-called, what they calling it today, the so-called Hebrew of today, so-called modern Hebrew. Adding these points added more confusion. So again, the ancient Hebrew and the Hebrew spoken by the Messiah did not have vowel points. They were added to the Hebrew text. The ancient Hebrew that Moses, the original Israelites, did not have vowel letters. So that means that when you hear the term Yahuwah, you have to make one of the consonants into a vowel letter in order to make that pronunciation of Hua. And this is not throwing any shade on anyone. All right. So let's go to a source here. Proofs of the interpolation of the vowel letters in the text of the Hebrew Bible by Charles William Wall, 1857. Now, this is an old source. Remember last night, Benaiah came on here, Benaiah Israel. He gave you guys great advice. This is something that I've been following by, and he follows as well. Start with the old sources. So let's see what this person here had to say about these letters, about this so-called modern Hebrew. Let's see what he says about it. Notice what he says. But in the case is widely different with regard to the further disclosure made in the following essay, namely that the Hebrew Bible as it issued, or not issued. Yeah, issued. I would say issued. I'm about to say something else. Issued. But as it issued from the pens of its inspired authors, was written without vowel signs of any kind, whether points or letters. So this is making it clear. When it says the ancient letters, the writings, that first 5 books of the Bible, Torah, right? It says here, was written without vowel signs of any kind. And it's saying whether they're points or letters. So what this saying is that there was no such thing as vowel letters. So to make that Y into a vowel letter to pronounce Hua, that is not ancient Hebrew. That is what is called interpolation. And our Messiah made it clear in Matthew chapter 5 about modifying the letters. He said, think not that I come to destroy the law and the prophets. He said, I did not come to destroy, but to fulfill. He goes on to say, not one jot or tittle in no wise should be made to what? The law and the prophets, the writings. So what does he mean when he said not one jot or tittle? Jot. The Greek word is iota. Iota is the 8th letter in the Greek, but they got the iota from the 10th letter of the Hebrew aleph bayat, which is the yod. The yod of the ancient is totally different of the yod of what they call today yod. So Christ is saying, don't even touch the letters, because the yod it's interesting that he used that particular letter. The yod, right, means redemption, salvation. Outstretched arms is the pictograph, right? So Christ is saying, right, don't even touch the letters, and the letters that he made reference to, don't even touch the yod, because you start with changing these letters, you change what salvation means. So when you change the yod, right, and the Israeli is pronounced yod, right, and it has a haircut. Wait a minute, why did I say haircut? Well, because you'll see tittle, karas, comes from the word ker, and I'm still dealing with the Greek. It means hair. It means horn. So when you understand what Christ is saying, don't even touch the hairs of the ancient letters, because the ancient letters look like they have hairs, looks like they have horns. So now we have this block stuff that's going on. Now we have this Syriac block letters going on. Now we see an interpolation going on. So that's why you see on your screen that where Aleph, Yod, and Wa are now to be seen, and it says in the pointed text, right? Useless. Now let me read it again. It says, was written without vowel signs of any kind, whether points or letters, that where Aleph, Yod, Wa are now to be seen in the pointed text, useless. So how do you get Elohim when in Arabic they say Allah, in the Aramaic Allah? So how do you get Elohim? It's because you're pronouncing the mark. You're not pronouncing the actual letter. And this is what it's saying inside this the source that I'm showing you here. It says here, they made the Aleph, the Yod, the Wa, right? The Aleph or Alap, the Yod, which is the Yad, the Wa, some would say Va, but made them useless because now they made these into vowel letters, or they, for example, the very first letter, the Alap, which here they call it the Aleph, they silenced it. You're never pronouncing that letter. Another letter you're never pronouncing is the Ayan. You're only pronouncing the mark of who? Man. Oh, anyway, yet we want to talk about the mark of the beast. That's why I don't listen to anyone that want to talk about the mark of the beast, and they still using the Israeli language, right? Come on, family. Still using the Israeli language. So they made these letters, key letters, useless, and in the unpointed, one diverted from their primary and proper use. In other words, of the same general nature as that of all the other elements of the Hebrew alphabet. So they literally began to what? Interpolate. That's why this book is called Proof of Interpolations. What it's saying is, it's proving that the Hebrew ancient writing was what? Modified. They inserted things of a different nature to form something else. That's the word interpolation. That's why this is called Proof of Interpolations. So anyone, right, that want to hold on to any of the pronunciations, the accents of that Israel, you are part of the delusion. You are part of being what? The Antichrist that is warned about in the scriptures. See, no matter what I say here, because I made it clear here, right? There were no O sounds and there was no U sounds in ancient Hebrew. So when you see the vowels A, E, I, O, U, that is actually in the succession of how that A began to be changed. Right? That A went all the way to U. U. Let me just play a clip real quick. The U sound comes from the O, and there was no O sound and there was no U sound in ancient Hebrew. Let me play this again from a professor teaching Hebrew.
Here's a chart that summarizes vowel class and length. And you can see across the top the three classes, ah, e, and oo, and then down the side the four lengths, long, medium, short, and very short. So let's just go over this chart. We'll start with the ah class vowels. The long vowel is cholam vav, and you'll recall that this says O as in snow. Now you might wonder why an O vowel is in the ah class, and this is because of historical considerations. Originally there was no O sound in Hebrew.
Did you guys hear that? Did you guys hear that? Originally, there was no O sound in Hebrew. So why are many of us still fixated on saying Yahuwah, right? Or Yahweh, Yeshua, Elohim, Ruach. See, those are key words that they targeted, and those are the very words that many of us are struggling with. I'm not saying this to insult anyone, but I want to make sure you guys understand, because many of you guys are trusting leaders to teach this to you. So woe unto anyone that calls the little ones. What is Christ saying here? He's saying woe unto the leaders, the teachers that are causing the ancient people, his people, to stray. And Carlos, I'm going to show you here. Yeah, it's actually Yahweh, but I'm going to show you here. I'm going to let the sources speak. So that great question, is Yahuwah wrong? Now, family, the reason why I don't make a big deal of this, because all of us are making it a point to learn. Right? We are trying to get there, because guess what? I didn't start with ancient Hebrew. I was learning the Israeli language. I took classes on it. And the more I studied, and I sat in some lectures that opened up my eyes. That's how I got a key source here, like this right here, proof of interpolation. And also another source I'm going to use called the Shemitic because I was sitting in on a lecture and I was like, wait a minute. And they was telling us about a lecturing about the ancient Hebrew. Then I asked the teacher, the Hebrew instructor, that, hey, so, and I'll leave it at that, He gave me some off the record information, confirmation. All right, family. So here it is. So it's saying that the ha, or the aleph, which is the alap, the wa, the yod, made those consonants basically useless. So to the occasional service of denoting vowels, they there constitute no part of the original writing. Let me say that again. Changing these letters, the aleph, silencing that letter, the yad, the wa, we could put ayin, because ayin has been silenced and made it to a vowel letter. But it says here, they constitute no part of the original writing, but were interpolated in it not long after. Well, we'll go back here. So it's saying that all these vowel letters that many of our brothers and sisters are teaching, that no matter what you say, they still going to teach what they want to teach. But what they're teaching is not part of the original writing, but were interpolated. So let's go back here for you guys that may have joined a little late. Let's see what interpolate means. Insert something of a different nature into something else. So that's what interpolate means, to insert something of a different nature into something else. Insert in a book or other text, especially in order to give a false impression as to its date. So when we go back over here, let me go back over here. So when we go back over here, it says they there constitute no part of the original writing, but were interpolated in it not long after, right? So again, proof in this book, Proof of Interpolations, make it clear that these are not original. All these vowel movements, the way that the aleph or the alap, the wa, the yod, and other letters, guess what? They are not being used. They're not being used of how they originally, from the original language and the original people. I know, family. I know we all are trying, man. But I know that it is hard, man. When I say that these people, or should I say that crafty council, they left no stone unturned. But let's continue here. Notice what it says here. In the first place, then about 2 centuries after the termination of the Babylonian captivity, and while a considerable number of persons still continued to speak pure Hebrew as their vernacular dialect, Asia was invaded by a people who had introduced into the original alphabet. Now we're going to deal with the Greeks, right? Because when Israel went through these captivities, like the Babylonian captivity, they maintained the true language. But what Charles Williams Wall is showing here is when the language was interpolated. Notice what he says here. The vast improvement of vowel letters, and the Jews were, in consequence, forced, in spite of their prejudices, to learn a species of writing that made them acquainted with the use of such letters. Right? In the second place, their scriptures were so soon afterwards translated into the tongue connected in the writing by the order, as tradition tells us, of a pagan government. Who's that pagan government? And at any rate, in a country in which they and their religion were peculiarly hated and despised. This rendering of the Old Testament into what? Greek. Now we're getting into the Septuagint, taking what? The original writings and making it into Greek, writing it into Greek, a language at the time understood throughout the civilized portion of the world. All right. That's a duplicate right here. So a language at that time understood throughout the civilized portion of the world. I'm not going to even get into that. I took that out of here. But let's go into it. Let's continue here. It says this conclusion is fully confirmed by the present discovery, for although some other Asiatic nations making use of syllabary may have been induced by observation of Grecian practice. Now, when we start dealing with syllabary, we're dealing with syllables, how words are broken down, because in ancient Hebrew, every letter was a syllable, was treated as a syllable in the ancient Hebrew. But now we have vowel letters and vowel points. That is not part of the original writing. And that's what this entire book is dedicated to bringing to the attention, right? The introduction, notice what it says, the introduction of the irregular species. Notice what it says, the introduction of the irregular species of vowel letters, technically called matres lectionis. So the Nakud, right, the masoretic points are dealing with those dots that you see, those marks. The vowel letters is the matres lectionis. Yet the Jews, who were particularly averse to holding any communication with pagans, cannot be supposed to have adopted this improvement until they were compelled to learn the benefit of it by being subjected to the dominion of who? The Greeks. But all the extant coins exhibit the wa or yod, or here it says yod, or both of these letters employed as vowel signs, and therefore each must have been stamped subsequently to the period when they came under the yoke of that people. So they are dealing with what? We're dealing with who? The Greeks. How the Greeks conquered and began to what? Change the culture, began to hijack cultures, began to change languages, not just the Hebrew language, but they went into the Greek. Because remember, when you start dealing with Ptolemy, he even created a Messiah, Serapis. All right. So when we see the word irregular, because we saw the word irregular that he had pointed out, irregular mean not being or acting in accord with laws, rules, or established customs. So this is where we go back to irregular, what he says here. Where is it? The introduction of the irregular species of vowels. All right. So irregular, what he's saying here, irregular, simply put, where is it? Irregular not being or acting in accord with laws. In other words, the laws of the language. All right. So let's go back to proof of interpolation. Let's see what else it says. And this is on page 8. But it would be going much too far in praise of the masoretic system of vowels to assert that it has been completely preserved the ancient pronunciation of Hebrew. So what he's saying here, that the Masoretics, the Masoretes, they didn't preserve the ancient language. He's saying here, do not praise them. It says, but it will be going much too far. He's saying anyone that's teaching or trying to give praises to the Masoretes for supposedly preserving the ancient language, he's saying that is far too much praise given to those guys. The Masoretic system of vowels, to assert that it has completely preserved the ancient pronunciation of Hebrew or kept it exactly the same. Come on, family. This is what this source saying, that they didn't keep it, they didn't preserve it. They didn't keep it exactly the same. Wait a minute. They didn't preserve it. No, they interpolated it and continued on pushing the interpolations of the language as it was from the very outset. On the contrary, external evidence which is accessible to us on the subject serves to show that in the course of a vast numbers of successive ages, some changes have taken place in this respect. But notice what you see here, but still, that they are not such as in the least to affect the sense of the scriptures. So what he's saying here is the language has been changed. It's been interpolated, but at least it doesn't change the meaning of the text. And I beg to differ when you start really dealing with the text, when you're dealing with different Bible translations of the manuscripts, because you have the ancient manuscripts, you have the ancient Torah, right? But then when you have someone writing or transliterating that, now you're going to have some things lost along the way, because now they already have an approach to the ancient text. They are going to insert sounds that was not there. They are going to what? Interpolate the language. They're going to take this modern approach to ancient texts that Moses wouldn't even be able to read. All right. Page 19. Let's see what else it says. This book says. I'm just giving you some sources within this book. It says here, some bullets from this book. I may here by anticipation add will be found equally to apply to the matres lectionis, right? Matres lectionis, that is the vowel letters. After it shall have been proved that those letters do not any more than the points constitute part of the Hebrew scripture as originally written. So these vowel letters, these vowel points, as you see here, says constitute. It says those letters do not any more than the points constitute part of the Hebrew scriptures as originally written. Let me give you another source. biblicalhebrew.org. The usage of certain consonants to indicate a vowel in the spelling of Hebrew, Aramaic, Syriac languages is called what? The matres lectionis. So this is why I said the confusion. Because this is not ancient letters. This is Syriac block letters. So now this should be the ha. In ancient Hebrew is pronounced ha. But now we have a vowel point underneath it. Now we have a kamet, which makes the ah sound, right? But then here we see the aleph, but we don't see a point under it. Unless this is out of order. If this point should be up under here, but you don't see a point. If this was underneath it and this is a karet yod, then this could together would make an e sound, right? And if it was just underneath it by itself, it'd make an is sound, right? We see a shavah here, right, under the resh. We see here the mem, right? We see the segal right here, the vowel point segal. But these are not, this is not ancient Hebrew. Even if you see this and you may have, let's just say if you have a so-called Hebrew Bible and you see these writings there, Guess what? You see these writings here? You see these lettering? You see these dots and everything? This is not ancient Hebrew. And that's what I want to make it clear. You do not see ancient Hebrew. What's on your screen is what the Israelis used to change the language. The Syriac block letters. This is what they held on to. All right. So let's continue here. Let's keep it going. Now, notice what it says here. This is key. The epiphenomenal association between consonant letters and vowel sounds was then seized upon and used in words without historic diphthongs. So now here it is. They're targeting key words, just like the previous source we identified that points it out. They began to target keywords. Here they are targeting keywords without historic diphthongs. So they began to interpolate these words, was then seized upon and used in words without historic diphthongs. This system developed as an early system for indicating vowels using the Hebrew alphabet. So words without historic diphthongs. Now I know some of you guys are asking the question, what is a diphthong? Let me show you what a diphthong is. A diphthong is a sound made by combining two vowels, specifically when it starts as one vowel sound and goes to another, like the oi sound in oil, because you see oil, the O is a vowel, the I is a vowel. So now collectively they're making the oi sound. Diphthong comes from the Greek word diphthongos, which means having two sounds. Wait a minute. So when you have these two vowels in some of these words that many are trying to pronounce and say that they are Hebrew words, they're actually Greek influence. They are diphthongs. When you combine that U and the A together, that is a diphthong. Ua, whether it's UA or AU, those are diphthongs. Ancient Hebrew did not have these diphthongs. Again, the Greek word is diphthongos, which means having two sounds. All right. All right. So these are some of the Germanic diphthongs. Right? Here's the Germanic diphthongs. These are some of the Germanic diphthongs. And this is where we start getting into Yiddish, the influence of Yiddish over the Israeli text. Actually, that's the foundation of their so-called Israeli language. All right. So here's words without historic diphthongs. And this is not trying to insult anyone, but notice what you see. Yahuwah, right? Yahuwah, right? Ancient Hebrew they followed by the consonant, vowel, consonant construct. So if we look here, right? Now, if we take this here, now this is supposed to be the wa. Consonant, vowel, consonant, but now we have two vowels here. So this would be out of order. They made the UA, made the Y into a vowel letter in order to form this diphthong. These are two vowel sounds. The UA is a UA, that is a diphthong. So when you say Yahuwah, guess what? Now you just silenced the Y. Didn't Christ speak against that, as we just pointed out? Now we're changing what? The letters. There were no vowel letters. And guess what? Every letter that you see, for example, the Y is a consonant. So this right here, and not trying to insult anyone, this is incorrect. Yeshua, notice what we see at the end, that UA sound, same thing. Ruach, same thing, that UA sound. This is making the Y into a vowel letter and now making it a combination of what? Two vowel sounds. All right. So this is, and guess what? I did this font right here to make it simple, but this will be the ancient, right? And this is the Syriac block letters, right? When we look at here in the ancient, this will always make the wa sound. In the Israeli language, this can make a number of sounds, but commonly the U sound, the O sound, but it can make other sounds. All right. So with that dot in the center, that is the shuruk, and it makes the oo sound, right? With that dot above it, it makes the o sound. Okay. Confusing, right? In ancient Hebrew, you didn't have all of that because every letter, it was understood to have the ah associated with it, right? So this is giving you a little more information on the matrix lectionics, which is called the matrix lectionis, rather. I said lectionis, but lectionis. This is giving you more understanding of how those communities interpolated our ancient writings. It says here, with the time, a whole system of rules was developed in Hebrew, which vowels should be marked with letters, either with vocalization, in other words, the nukud, or without. In Yiddish, the ayin is used to indicate the presence of the e sound. So they're saying, hey, this letter ayin, right, or ayan in the ancient Hebrew, which is silent, but they use this letter, right, to make the e sound. Right? Remember when I said when we was dealing with, for example, the correct and a correct yod, the correct yod makes the e sound, right? But they said in Yiddish, the ayan is now made into what? The e sound. However, one must not forget that the letters wa, ha, alap, yod. So I'm gonna say it in the ancient wa, ha, alap, yad, used as matrilectionis, in other words, vowel letters, do not have one specific pronunciation indeed, but they rather indicate one of. So it's saying these letters could have all kinds of multiple pronunciations. This is more confusing. So it says that aleph, this I'm saying in the Israeli, aleph can be make a sound, it can make a o sound, it can make a e sound, it can even make an IE sound. So this is giving you the understanding that multiple different sounds. This is where the confusion come in. The ha can be the a, the e, and sometimes o. Right? So some will point to saying, hey, in the Isaiah scrolls, guess what? Hey, we're gonna use this as a proof that there were points back then. Come on, family. Nah. Come on, let's stop this. The Essenes in Qumran, who copied this scroll approximately 100 BCE, are not to be considered the protectors of an accurate text identical with the Tanakh, which would have been revered by the rabbis. They were actually far from the mainstream, and it is clear that the Q text of Isaiah is a dialect of Hebrew. So when you say a dialect of Hebrew, it's saying it's a form of Hebrew, but it's not the ancient. So this is making it clear that the when you look at some of the scrolls, the Essene scrolls and that was found in those caves, this is what many of it was written in a form of Hebrew, a dialect of Hebrew, but not the actual ancient. And you'll see that some of those were even interpolated. So it is it is not a translation, but is characterized by modifications in spellings and personal pronouns to match the then current Aramaic dialect that the Essenes would have spoken. It was much like changing ye, thee, and thou to you, thine, to yours, would be to us. Thus, the preservation of an identical letter for letters, let me go back here. Identical letter for letter received text was not at all a part of their motivation. In their use of the scriptures, the Qumran text that I have translated, and just giving you some of the documents, the areas that he's translated. It says, I have translated and are dialects of Hebrew, not the Hebrew Tanakh. Saying, wait a minute, these are dialects of ancient Hebrew, but it's not the Hebrew of the Torah, the law that was given to Moses. Preservation of the original Hebrew letter for letter text was the role played by the rabbis, right, of the main. All right. So again, the Q text of Isaiah is a dialect of Hebrew. Those letters do not, any more than the points, constitute part of the Hebrew scriptures as originally written. That's going back to the quote from Proof of Interpolation. So when we go back here, that's what it says here. All right. Those vowels, those letters, those points, right? That's not ancient. Now, let me give you this source real quick, and then we'll move to another because I don't want to spend too much time on the language. The Semitic vowel ah. This is the source that I told you I was sitting in on the lecture, and this right here knocks out the park. I mean, out the park. I said park. Knocks out the park and further proves that there were no other vowels in ancient Hebrew but the ah sound. Right? So let's see here. Did I put it in here? Yeah. Let's deal with this real quick. Right? Vowels could be reconstructed in the Indo-European languages even easier than in Hebrew because of excessiveness of those languages. Yet, written languages beyond the Egyptian and West Semitic differentiate vowels even in shorthand writing. To omit the vowels is odd unless vocalization was unessential or unambiguous. Proto-Hebrew was ambiguous, right? There was no indefinite articles in ancient Hebrew, just like in Greek. But Proto-Hebrew was unambiguous. In other words, it was not generic. It was not vague. It was not filled with ambiguity. It was simple. The language had a single vowel ah, which later evolved into the other vowels according to synodical accent. Differentiation of vowels runs exactly along morphological differentiation. Sanskrit vocalizes each consonant with ah without specifically marking that sound. So this is saying in Sanskrit, they have have consonants that you'll hear the ah sound associated with it, but they don't have the vowel written. But everyone knows that understands that language to pronounce ah. So without specifically marking that sound, Hebrew likewise need not mark vowels. The only existing vowel ah was presumed for every consonant when writing ka, and the Hebrew actually meant ka, right? The kop, right? Actually meant ka. Come on, family. That's what this is saying. It's literally telling us that, and this is why I say it's so simple, family. Hebrew is so simple, ancient Hebrew, because you ain't have to memorize all these different vowel points and all that other stuff. See, this is why you can read this so-called Israeli language without their vowel points if you understand ancient Hebrew. All right. So consonant vowel structure provided for clear pronunciation of consonants without blurring, as in consonant vowel consonant clusters or word final consonants. Initially, each syllable, notice what it says here, each syllable was pronounced distinctly with its own accent. So this is where you see da bara. As you see here, da bara. So this would be the dalaf, this would be the bayaf, and this would be the ra'ash. In the Israeli language, this would be the daleth, this would be the beth, and this would be the vresh. But it's saying that initially these three letters were pronounced da bara. Every letter was pronounced as a syllable. Doesn't it sound similar to Deborah? If you take the O out and instead of saying Deborah, da bara, it sounds like Deborah. I mean, Deborah's name, the transliteration of Deborah. So when you say da bar, right, or da bara, right, actually Deborah's ancient name was da bara. Come on, family. It's just that simple. It's just that simple. As people became more fluent in speech, they pronounced words as a whole, and accent naturally shifted the penultimate position. So instead of saying da bara, you start seeing the accent being placed on this portion of it. That's what it's pointing out. Accident final vowel shortened to indistinct sharuk. So da bara became da baru. Right? So now they adding what? They that last ah, now they basically stretched it. This is when we start getting into diminution. They stretched it, the ah, to make it into a oo sound. This is where you see sharuk. Sharuk makes the oo sound and was eventually lost to dabara or dabar. Right? So it started out as dabara to now dabar. So they had that last letter, that last ah as a oo, and then it eventually was lost to dabar. So let me give you another source here, and then we're going to transition to another thing. But I just wanted to just reiterate this from this point to you guys. I want to bring this up every now and then just to make sure we understand. All right? Come on, fam. It's just this simple, family. It's just this simple. Right? Now, notice this here. This document right here. You could download this document. The Shemitic Vowel American Journal of Philology. Right? It says here, we may have a very valuable testimony, Semitic pronunciation, which may not only furnish materials history of the Babylonian Syrian vocalism, but also on that of the sister dialects, especially the Central or Canaanitish groups. So this is telling you that, guess what? When we start dealing with this ancient Hebrew, guess what? The Babylonians had the same constructs. The Assyrians had the same constructs. And as you see here, many of the Canaanitish groups, guess what? Had the same construct. Its value is diminished. And this is dealing with the diminished. Indeed, by the fact that in a foreign character not invented by Semites or to express sounds. So now this is telling you that the Greeks, as we highlighted in the book, Proof of Interpolations, they began to what? As you see here, diminish the by the fact that in a foreign character not invented by Semites or to express sounds. We see that today, the masoretic points. Yet this disadvantage concerns the consonants mainly, and if the writings is correctly read, it ought to give us in general a true picture of the early Babylonian pronunciation of the vowels. In the case of the other dialects, our direct information does not back further than about the beginning of our era, but it says, and the results of comparison of sounds must always have the uncertainty that attaches to the material. I have here gathered some materials for a history of the first vowel This is the first vowel. It says, giving first the cases in which it has maintained itself, then the change it has undergone. It has been preserved in the following forms. First, in the primitive or underived nouns. So when you start going into, and this was a nugget that I was given when I was taking classes years ago, offline, right? I was told to go to the primitive root words. Most of the primitive root words in, for example, your Strong's dictionary, you go to that primitive root word, you will see that most of those primitive root words doesn't have any other vowels but the sound. Like when you go to Moses' name in ancient Hebrew, if you go to the Strong Concordance, go to the primitive root, you won't see Moshe, you'll see Masha. Right? So it has been preserved in the following form. First, in the primitive or underived noun in a number of words such as ab and father. So it's saying in some words, you still hear the original as in father, brother, right? Ab as in father, ak as in brother, yad. Notice what it says. It didn't say yod, it says yad. Let me say that again. It did not say yod, it says yad. Christ talked about not even changing what? The letters, and he used the yad as an example, kaf as in hand, in which, except the last, Hebrew in accordance, law of tone broadening has retained the original vowel status constructors, and in the plural of ak. So let's continue here, right? It goes on to say, gives us some additional information, right? Started showing us how, for example, the ha, we refer, as it says here, the article we refer a primitive sin ha, with which may be compared to Arab hey as a probable lengthening. So it's saying the original ma, now it's been what? Lengthened. It's been stretched out from ma to may, right? Possibly day or da, whence Arabic da, right? But notice what it says here. Most of the simple particles, right, have as in ba, ka. Notice what this says. It's going to sound like baby talk here. As it says as ba, right? So it's saying we're going to see some of this still retain this ah sound. Ba, ka, la, and this is dealing with some of the prefixes as well, right? Ba, ka, la, wa, fa, sa, am, an, al, la, khad. Now here's a diphthong. AU is still supposed to be pronounced ah. That's what this is saying here. But in ancient Hebrew, didn't have a U sound. So you would not see this in ancient Hebrew. La, as in law. Kai, as in kai, not K, but kai. And others. While the I has thus maintained itself in so large a number of cases, it has also suffered frequent phonetic diminution and increased mainly by the influence of the accent. All right, we're going to have to deal with that word accent shortly. First, let us take the forms in which it has undergone degradation. And this is where we get into umlauts. When you see those dots and we see those symbols above the language, it says the Eastern Babylonian Syrian dialects seem to offer no example of this change. So even in other dialects, didn't have this in there. It did not have these, what we see of today did not have this in their dialects, right? And as you see here, Aramaic, none of these didn't have that. All right, let me see here. Real quick, what is an accent, right? And then we transition here. An accent, an effort in speech to stress one syllable over adjacent syllables. The stress thus given a syllable, right? So the effort in speech to stress one syllable. So when they say accents, right? All of us have an accent. Now, I'm from New Jersey area, New York, New Jersey area. So we have a way of pronouncing our words. Like, you know, for example, I use the word water, right? Back home, we say water, right? You know, some say ka, right? So that is what is called an accent, okay? So, but here it is. The key here, this is what I want to highlight, is entry number 2, a distinctive manner of expression, such as, and in that sub entry A, it says a way of speaking typical or a particular group of people, and especially of the narratives or residents of a region. So when we start understanding this, those vowel points, guess what? Those vowel points are points to mark accents of another country, another group of people, the Greeks and other groups that have interpolated. Now, family, I'll answer this question real quick. L is not ancient Hebrew. Remember, we said al, the ah. In order to say L, you have to what? Pronounce the mark that was assigned to it. As I highlighted for those that didn't, that are asking the questions now, please go back and watch the earlier lesson because I don't want to go back over this. So L is not ancient Hebrew. It's not even the ancient Sumerians. This is getting into modern constructs. This is why you see, and I'll say it again, in Arabic, right? You see Allah. In Aramaic, you see Allah. So where did L come from? That's not an ancient construct. All right. That's not even as I pointed out, the Babylonians didn't have the pronunciation L. It was al. It was al, not L. It was al. All right. So I just want to give you guys clarity, but go back over and watch the lesson from the beginning because for the sake of time, I just don't want to go back over it. Certain points that I already made earlier. All right. So accent. Also, this is important. A mark. Notice what you see here. A mark. So an accent. This is where we start getting into the marks used in writing or printing to indicate a specific sound value. So now in ancient Hebrew, right, we didn't have these marks. We didn't have vowel letters. Now in this so-called Israeli language, you have these marks to what? Indicate making a sound. In the Israeli language, they call these vowel points to make what? Vowel sounds. Used in writing or printing to indicate specific sounds sound value, stress, or pitch to distinguish words otherwise identically spelled, or to indicate that an ordinarily mute vowel, an ordinarily mute vowel should be pronounced. So the alap was muted. So now you have to pronounce whatever sounds that's assigned to it, whether it's the patak, whether it's the kamets, whether it's the karet or the segal, but you're never pronouncing the vowel. You're only pronouncing the mark, the accent that was assigned to it. Anyway, the etymological dictionary definition of the accent is pretty much going to say the same thing, but here's the kicker. Effort and utterance making one syllable stronger than the other in pitch or stress. But the key is mark or character. So now when we see mark, nikud, like we just talked about, now when we deal with that, we're dealing with the matrices. I mean, not the matrices like the onus, but we're dealing with the masoretic points, the nikud, or character. In other words, letters, right? That's now getting into the matrices like the onus. Mark or character used in writing to indicate what? An accent. All right, let's go back here real quick. Right, those dots that you see over some of the characters on, that you guys have seen this before. We're dealing with umlauts, and notice where umlauts come from. German, go figure. Right, I'm not gonna go into the details of this, family. I have a playlist that says a Hebrew playlist that gives some of this information. I just don't want to go too far in here. I went longer than what I wanted to go. But umlauts, those are of Germanic influence, which I'll play this clip real quick since we mentioned Germany.
So a little over 1,000 years ago, as Jewish people scattered around the world had now emigrated in Europe and now were living in the Rhineland in Germany, they looked at the name Gomer in Genesis 10, and they connected Gomer with Germany. So they took on the identity of the name Ashkenaz. It has nothing to do with Ashkenaz in the Bible, which is a descendant of Japhet. It's just a name that was taken. Okay, it's that simple. Just like my last name Brown doesn't refer to the color of my skin or anything else. It was shortened from a Russian name when my grandfather came over at Ellis Island. The name got shortened to Brown. It's just a name. That's all it is. So the idea that Ashkenazi Jews are descended from Japhet is a myth. 100% false.
So this is why this so-called Israeli language sounds like a heavily influenced with German. Aleph, Bet, Gimel, Dalet, He, Va, Zayin, Chet, Tet, Yod, Kaf, Kaf, Lamet, Mem, Num, Zayin, Ayin, Pei, Sade, Kuf, Resh, Sin, Shin, Tav. Come on, family. That's right, stranger danger. So umlauts, as it says here, slightly alter the sound of the vowels, those two dots. And here's some more examples, some additional examples of umlauts. And you see this heavily influenced over the so-called modern Hebrew. All right. And this is the Saray Yod, and this is the Saray, and this is an umlaut, and they still make the same sound. So these two dots, now we see these two dots that's Germanic umlauts, right? For their vowel A, we see those same dots over here in their Israeli language. Come on, family. It's not a coincidence. All right. Let me fast forward. I dealt with a lot. All right. This is a source here. Why? I mean, they was just calling out this so-called modern Hebrew. Notice what it says here. The name I use for so-called modern Hebrew. Because, linguist was already challenging this language. But this is one key thing that really stands out about this here. Right? Because it says here, indeed, the genetic classification of Israeli has preoccupied linguists from the beginning of the 20th century. The still prevalent traditional view suggests that Israeli is Semitic, Hebrew revived. But guess what he says here? Educators, scholars, and politicians have contributed to this assumption in their efforts to impose a nationalist narrative on linguistic reality. Revisionists counter that it is actually Indo-European Yiddish, in other words, relexified, that is Yiddish with Hebrew vocabulary. Come on, family. So they're making it clear here, and this is coming from an Oxford source here. As you see his title at the top here, Language Revival and Multiple Causation, the Mosaic Genesis of the Israeli Language. They're not calling it Hebrew, Israeli language. Oxford University Press. Educators, scholars, and politicians, they are in on the game. And so when our brothers and sisters continue to push this language, they are part of the game. They are part of the deception. They are part of the delusion. Come on, family. Now, guys, I haven't given any of my own opinions. I'm giving literally sources. Now, have you guys heard, since you guys have been following me, have you guys seen me just posting my opinions, or have I always been honest with bringing sources? This is sources. This is not coming from any of other opinions but Oxford in this particular source. But notice what it says here, right? My own hypothesis is that Israeli is a hybrid language, both Semitic and Indo-European. I argue that both Hebrew and Yiddish act equally as its primary contributor. But then it start naming some additional contributors to it, accompanied by a plethora of other contributors: Polish, Russian, German, Judeo-Spanish, aka Ladino, Arabic, English, and etc. all contribute to this hybrid language. Thus, the term Israeli is far more appropriate than Israeli Hebrew, let alone modern Hebrew or Hebrew to court. Man, I don't have to talk about this anymore. And it goes on to say, Yiddish survives beneath Israeli phonetics, phonology, syntax, lexis, even, it says, and even morphology. In other words, how they develop words, how they develop the words, like that Eliezer Ben Yehuda in 1855 was making up words. All right. And to further prove this point right here, this is dealing with Ga'az, the Ethiopian language, ancient Ga'az, which is a Shemitic language. And as you see here, as I demonstrated last night, it did not have the vowel pronunciations as we see today. That began, as we see here, it was the 4th century to make the language more acceptable to the other nations, so to speak. So before the 4th century, Ge'ez or Ge'ez had not made use of vowels, right? In other words, these European vowel sounds. But it's when they started dealing with Christianity and dealing with some of these other cultures outside, they began to interpolate their own language. So this is how Ge'ez actually originally sound. Ba. Let me move this out the way. I can't see everything. All right. Ba ga da za ta a ya ka la ma sa a ka ra wa za ha aha na sa ta fa. Sound like a baby language. That's what they viewed ancient Hebrew back in the antiquities, as it was considered like a baby language, like baby talk, so to speak. All right. So I know I spent a lot of more time on this than I had would have liked to. Got lost in the time. All right. But I want to make sure you guys understand this, family. Only way we're going to be able to do better is to what? Do better. The only way we're going to be able to break these generational strongholds is by what? Break them. And guess what? Stronghold, when you understand it from a biblical perspective, stronghold actually, right? Conversation. All right. All right. All right. Let me see here. This is the last point I want to make. For those that will insist, right, that this is maintaining, or should I say, preserving the ancient Hebrew language, the question remains, and this is coming from Ancient Phonology, Cornell University, by Gary A. Rensburg. Is a professor. Also, I believe he taught at Rutgers, if I remember correctly. But nevertheless, the question remains as to how accurately the reading tradition of the biblical text and the Masoretic transcription therefore reflects ancient Hebrew. That is to say, the Masoretic text, that is the traditional text of the Bible, dates to the Common Era, right? 850, right? So it's pointing to 850, in other words, 9th century, and reflects the manner in which biblical Hebrew was pronounced at that time. It's not the antiquities, but what Hebrew, supposedly biblical Hebrew, pronounced in the 9th century. Not at the time of Moses, but at that time of the 9th century, reflects the manner in which biblical Hebrew was pronounced at that time. In other words, filled with all the interpolations. But how traditional, an example, how ancient was the reading tradition of the readers for the centuries before 850? In other words, does the Masoretic text reflect Hebrew as it was pronounced 500 years earlier, 1,000 years earlier, even 1,500 years earlier? In some cases, we can answer this question, but no definitive conclusion can be reached. So it says in some cases, just like going back to the original source, it says in some words, you still see that it maintained the original vowel ah. So that's why it says in some cases we can answer this question, but no definitive conclusion can be reached. Nevertheless, we will base ourselves on the assumption. Oh, come on, family. So all of what you hear, people have invested thousands and thousands of dollars into learning. And guess what? They're learning someone else's assumption. Y'all remember that old term? When you assume, you make what? Bleep out of you and me? Come on, family. We will base ourselves on the what? Assumption that the readers of the first millennium were extremely conservative in their biblical reading tradition. Come on, family. Right? Maria Craft, correction, the Talmud is a made-up book, right? Not Torah, not those first 5 books of the Bible. That's Torah. The Talmud. So I just want to give you a little correction on it. Real quick, I want to give some shout outs here. I want to say my apologies. I just noticed that here. All gas, no breaks. Thank you for the love tonight. Family, let's show all gas, no breaks for the contribution tonight. Also, Barbara Rigney, thank you for the contribution as well. Man, Barbara, thank you for the super sticker as well. Gave 2 donations tonight. Thank you for the love and support. And also Douglas Worley, thank you for the love and support as well. Family, let's show some love as we progress here. All right. All right. So did the Israel preserve or keep safe, right, or free from harm the ancient Israelites? Come on, family. So now we're transitioning to another discussion. Now, with what I presented to you, I'm going to put this inside the chat. I'm going to ask a question here. Let me ask this question. Where's my? I'm going to ask this question here. Let me just log into my YouTube so that way I can post this question here. All right, let me do something real quick. All right, it's not coming to me yet. Bear with me 1 second, family. I'm trying to log into my account here. Let's try this one more time. Okay, it's not letting me log into my YouTube. Not sure why it's doing that. Let me try it this way. All right. Let me do something real quick. All right, let me post this here. Let's do this poll here. Let me see here. All right, almost done here. All right. I'm going to post this question here. And you guys feel free to click yes or no. All right, here we go. Doesn't cost you anything to participate. All right. All right. So based on the presentation tonight, did those Israelis, did the Israelis preserve the ancient Israelite language? All right. Based on the information that was presented tonight, right? Did they preserve the ancient language? And I've given nothing but sources. So let's see if we could get 100 votes on this, at least 100 votes, 100 participants in this. So again, it doesn't cost you anything to participate in this. Also, let's get those likes up. Let's see if we can at least get the likes to 400 tonight before we conclude. And my apologies for jumping on real late. So I know some that was anticipating, and also I didn't create a I scheduled a live. I should have done that, but I forgot. So this is kind of like a last minute schedule. So, we'll get the numbers back up, and appreciate all those that have been tuning into the channel. But so far we have out of 54 votes, 94%, almost 95% said that based off the information that I went over tonight, we proved that they did not preserve the language. You're the jury, right? You have to be persuaded. You have to be convinced. See, I'm convinced. I know for sure that they didn't preserve it. But I don't want to influence you, but I want to make sure that you understand. So again, this lesson is not to throw shade on anyone, but to make sure that you guys, understand how to approach, right? Understand anyone that is teaching, you guys know how to approach it. You guys know how to discern the information. You know how to sift through the information that is being presented to you, starting with the language. All right. All right. We got a little more time, right? Do I want to get into all of this here tonight? All right. You know what? I'm not going to get into all this tonight. This is dealing with how they treated our people, of course. We know that they didn't do anything to preserve the ancient Israelites. Oh, let me highlight this real quick. Tying into the Israeli. Strictly speaking, it is incorrect to call an ancient Israelite a Jew or to call a contemporary Jew an Israelite or a Hebrew. So this source, coming from the Jewish Almanac, 1980, makes it clear the ancient Israelites, the ancient Hebrews were not Jews. And the modern Jews are not ancient Israelites. That's what this source is saying. Let's go back here, right? Strictly speaking, it is incorrect to call an ancient Israelite a Jew or to call a contemporary Jew an Israelite or a Hebrew. The first Hebrews may not have been Jews at all. Come on, family. That word should not be used at all. When did the word Jew become synonymous to all of Israel? And this is why you see confusing questions like this. Let me play it real quick. Let me get to it. This is why you see questions of confusion, not words of confusion, but questions of confusion, just like this rabbi asked a group of not limba, but a group of Igbo elders.
You know what you are? You're an ancient Israelite.
Ancient Israelite, that's who we are. That's who we are. So if you give me time, how old are you saying?
I know. We don't have
so many years.
I know. Look at this. This is pages and pages of notes. And I promise we'll give more teaching. But here is my challenge to you.
All right.
I'm hearing some of your traditions. It's like the days of the Bible.
Yes.
Do you want to remain ancient Israelites or you want to be Jews? Do you want to remain ancient Israelites or you want to be Jews? Do you want to remain ancient Israelites or you want to be Jews?
So, clarity. Abraham was not a Jew. Abraham was a Hebrew, but he wasn't a Jew. But guess what? The Edomites were Hebrews, right? Abraham he was not an Israelite. But when we get to the actual descendants of Jacob, whose name was changed to Israel, guess what? All of them are Israelites. That word Jew is not an ancient word. That is a modern word that started its conception in the 12th century, where you see GYU in English. And then when we get to the 17th, 18th century, we see other definitions were added to it for political purposes. So when did the word Jew become synonymous to Israel? If you want to say Jew is Judah, which, that's not an ancient word. I'm not a Jew, even though I know I'm connected to Judah. I'm not using that word. Right? But let's just say if you want to use the word Jew to connect it with Judah. Judah was a tribe. So that means that all the other tribes would not have been considered Judah. But then Judah was a nation. In other words, a kingdom, a southern kingdom. You had the southern kingdom, which was called Judah, and you had Judah tribe, and you also had the Benjamites. Then later you had the Levites that connected with them and dwelt in Jerusalem. But guess what? The Benjamites were still, they still had the distinction of being called Benjamites, because why? Apostle Paul in Romans referred to himself as being what? a Benjamite. So that tells us that there was still a distinction even among the southern kingdom of who's who. I know that it's hard to grasp that. I am an Israelite. I'm an Israelite. All of us are Israelites. You know, we could point to Judah. We can also point to Levi, right? But guess what? We all are Israelites. That's why that source here says, strictly speaking, it is incorrect to call an ancient Israelite a Jew. Says it's incorrect to call an ancient Israelite. Didn't say which groups within the Israelites. It says to call an ancient Israelite. So it doesn't matter what tribe they're from. But it's incorrect to call an ancient Israelite a Jew, or to call a contemporary Jew an Israelite or a Hebrew. So it says it's incorrect to call an ancient Israelite a Jew. That is referring to even the tribe of Levi, the Levites. The Levites. The Levitical priests were not Jews. They were ancient Israelites. They were Israelites. They were Hebrew Israelites. Come on, family. It's just that simple. Just that simple, family. One last point I'm going to share here, because I want to make sure I give additional source just to further knock down this whole Elohim stuff. And this is not, again, I'm not trying to disrespect anyone with it, but I'm just posting this. You want to post the truth here. Let me see. I want to put one additional source. I got other sources, but I just want to put a source here. All right, let's see here. Let me see if I can find. And we're going to wrap this up, because I don't feel like getting into the other stuff. All right, here it is. I'm just going to copy this over real quick. I just want to post this real quick. All right. I'm just going to post this right at the beginning. And then we'll cover it real quick. Then we'll wrap it up. All right. All right, let's go back over here. All right, trying to get my... Man, doing a lot here. All right, let's go back to the beginning here. I want to go to here. Right? You see Allah or Allaha, right? Right. This is the Ernest Klein, a comprehensive etymology or etymological dictionary of the Hebrew language. And you see here Allah, right? So it says to worship as a deity. So Allah. And then we see Allaha, right? It says here, Arab. Now we got the 3 dots here, so we know what that's going to be, what that's going to pronounce it, right? And that'll put it. This is where we get Eloha, right? Eloha, right? So this is where you get Eloah, right? So anyway, so let me put this right. Fell out. All right. So this right here, you have the sigal, which is the vowel points, and you also see the dot above this wa. So we know that this is a vowel letter, and this is the colon va. So to be Eloha, right? But then when we see Arabic, it says Allaha. Sounds what? Similar to Aramaic, what I just pointed out, right? And then you see, this is just giving you some different pronunciation. Then we see, which is denominated from Ilah, equal God. Okay. So when we go to the Aramaic definition of Allaha, right? Notice what we see here. You see the pronunciation Allaha. It says Aramaic, name or noun God, transliterates to God. Then we say Allah. We say Allah, right? We still seeing what? The same similar sound. But now all of a sudden we get L and it says Ugaritic and Phoenician. Come on, family. Come on, family. The ancient language that the Phoenicians spoke in is similar to the language that the ancient Hebrews spoke in. And they would have had Allah, not L. Ugaritic was not fully deciphered until 1934. But we see Allah for Aramaic, and we see Allah. But even in the source that I presented here, we see what? Allah or Allah, right? And this is what we see here, Allah, Arabic, Allah. All right? That's what I want to point here real quick. In Aramaic, Allah, right, is how it's pronounced. And many will try to say that the ancient Hebrews spoke Aramaic. So if you're saying they spoke Aramaic in the days of Christ, then you're saying that Christ would have said Allah and not El. Can't make this stuff up. We have to make this make sense, family. We have to knock down all of these contradictions. Does that make sense, family? You cannot say El. How did you get El from Allah? If you're saying that Christ, that all the Israelites at the time of Christ were speaking Aramaic, and that was the lingua franca of that time, then how do you get El from Allah? Now, there are some passages that says Allahai, right? I see a comment here, Malaka. I didn't put it inside this presentation. Don't want to go too deep into that tonight, but let me see. I may even copy that over real quick. Let me just copy this over here real quick. So we see Allahai. I think I saw you post here. Let me copy this over real quick. Family, I have plenty of sources. And again, this presentation is not to disrespect anyone, but it's from a perspective of giving clarity. We need to start giving clarity, family. We need to start really teaching. If we're saying that we're going to get back to the ancient writings and all that, really want to understand those as well, we got to let go of some stuff, right? So let me go back to the beginning here, and I'll just answer my sis Malaka. Let me answer your question here, right? I thought I saw Allahaya. So this is Exodus chapter 15, verse 1 and 2. All right. Let me do one more thing here. Make sure. I thought I updated this, but let's make sure. Let me do one more thing with this. You guys know I like my presentations to look a certain way. I am a perfectionist when it comes to stuff like this. Exodus 15. All right. Let me clean up this slide. That's how I can tell I cleaned up these slides, but I want to make sure it's clean. All right. Let me clean it up here. All right, there it is. All right. So just to give clarity here, because you have Allahayam, you have Allah, and you also have Allahaya, how you would pronounce this here. Some would say Allahai, all right? So, you know what? I just dawned on me. You guys don't see what I'm seeing here. So let me show you what I see. I'm all right. Let me bring that over here. So let's go back. All right. Did I stretch my screen out here? Let me make sure I did that. All right, let me stretch my screen out here. There it is. All right. Let's try this again. So Exodus chapter 15, let's go to verse 1. Then sang Moses and the children of Yashara'al, right? It says, this song unto Yahweh, and spake, saying, I will sing unto Yahweh, for he hath triumphant, glorious, the horse and his riders hath he thrown into the sea. Verse 2. And Yah, we see the short form, right? Now here in the back, you see the Lord. Actually, in the ancient Hebrew, you'll see Yah. This is exactly what you see in the ancient Hebrew. Yah is my strength and song, and he is become my salvation. He is my Allah, not El, Allah, right? This is how you pronounce it. I gave you the sources on that, right? And I will prepare him an habitation. My father's Allahaya or Allahai, right? So let's see what this means here. Allahai or Allahaya. When we go here, right? We see it here, right? Elohi, right? That's how it's pronounced in the Israeli language. Elohi. In other words, God-like, divine. So this is two different ways of writing it. That's why you see it here both ways. Here you see it without the vowel letter. So you just see the O or the what you call it, the colon, right? That's to the corner of this letter, the lamed, right? So lo he, right? This is the correct yod, and it makes an E sound. So this is why you see two different writings here. Let me see if I can zoom that in even more. This is what I'm covering right here. So that'd be Elohi, right? And here, Elohi, spelled, pronounced the same, but the spelling is different. This one you have a vowel letter. This is what we taught today about the matres lectionis. And remember, ancient Hebrew, let me play this audio again. Let me play it one more time about the O sound. This is what the professor in the audio that I played, this is what he was referring to. Let's see here.
Here's a chart that summarizes vowel class and length. And you can see across the top the three classes, A, E, and U, and then down the side the four lengths, long, medium, short, and very short. So let's just go over this chart. We'll start with the A class vowels. The long vowel is cholam vav, and you'll recall that this says O as in snow. Now you might wonder why an O vowel is in the A class, and this is because of historical considerations. Originally there was no O sound in Hebrew.
All right, so you just heard it. Originally, there was no O sound in ancient Hebrew. So guess what? This sound would not have existed. It would not be Elohi. It'll be Allahai. Because again, in the ancient Hebrew, you don't see the Wa. Right? Let's go back here. In the ancient Hebrew, it's Allahai or Allahaya. Allah, excuse me. I'll say it in the ancient Hebrew. Each letter has a syllable. Allahaya. I'll say it again. Allahaya. That is the ancient pronunciation. And again, it can be used synonymously with Allahayam. All right. So I hope that helps make sense to you, Malaka? Because I saw your comments inside the comment section about this word. So I hope this helps give you more clarity on, Allahaya. So that's not the name of the Father, right? But that's showing, similar to Allahayam. This is where you see Yahweh Allahayim. In other words, that when we see it used there in that tense, it's still referring to the Most High. All right, the Father, Allahayam. All right. Let's see here. All right, family. Let's see here. Just looking here real quick. All right. Let's see here. All right. All right, family. That's all I have tonight. I'll just look at here, making sure that there's no crazy comments here. All right. So I hope that helps you out here, family. Hope that helps you out here. Yeah, I want to make it clear when you see El Shaddai, Israel, that's not his name. El Allah Shaddai, that's not his name. That's an attribute. His name is Yahweh. So when you see El Shaddai, family, and this is where you get into like the 70 or 72 names, supposedly, the Most High does not have 72 names. His name is Yahweh, right? Let me prove that here. Let me add one more thing here and we'll wrap it up. So I just want to address a couple of things because I see a couple of things inside the chat that is not correct. His name is not El Shaddai. His name is Yahweh. Allah Shaddai is simply, in a nutshell, is describing the reputation of the Most High. That's not his name. So I want to make sure we have clarity, and please do not post in the chat unless you give actual sources. And I can tell you, you're not going to find a single source that says that that's his name. All right, let's do this real quick. Exodus. All right. Now, let me pull this over here. Right. Let's go to verse 3. Right. And this is verse 3 here. The Lord is a man of war. The Lord is his name. That's what I'm reading here. Exodus chapter 15. In the ancient Hebrew, you'll see what they call the tetragrammaton, the Yahweh. Excuse me. Yahweh. This is what you see in the ancient, not El. Yahweh is a man, Ayash, of war. Malak, Malak Ma. Yahweh is his name. Sham. Sham is transliterates to name. So, but you will see Yahweh, not what you El Shaddai. El Shaddai is not a name. El Shaddai is describing the Most High. All right. So I want to make sure we understand that. And that's right, Yah son. We are well studied here. Appreciate you, my brother, for keeping order in the chat, because sometimes people will come in and want to try to teach the lesson. So his name is Yahweh, not Yahuwah, not Yahuwah, right? Remember, I gave you all sources of his ancient name. What you choose to do from here, that's on you. But please respect what we do over here. Yahweh is what we're referring to. All right? So his name is Yahweh. The short form is Yah. All right? So again, if you guys don't want to accept what's being taught over here, then this is not being mean or disrespectful. Yah's son beat me to the point. Start your own channel. You don't come over here being disrespectful and trying to teach over what's already been taught tonight. Start your own channel, then you can teach whatever you choose to teach. All right. So I'm just removing some of the comments here that's not coinciding with what we just taught here tonight. So with that being said, family, I hope this lesson really blesses you. And we just proved that that community did not preserve. They actually help contribute to the perversion of our ancient language. All right. And I appreciate my brother Yah's son for holding it down. And moderators, shoot me an email because I want to shoot you guys some gifts, for holding down the chat. So I've been wanting to do that. So please send me an email. Yah's son, send me an email, and that way I can shoot you a gift. I want to shoot you guys a token of appreciation. So I really appreciate all what you guys have done. All right. But with that being said, family, I'm going to go ahead and call it a wrap. I went a lot longer than what I anticipated. And, but I'd rather for you guys, excuse me, to have clarity than to be blind. Use proper discernment when you're hearing others teach about this language. So with that being said, in the words of the Most High that he gave to Masha, right? That's actually the primitive root of Moses' name is Masha, not Moses, not Moshe. In ancient Hebrew would be Masha. But anyway, in the words of the Most High that he gave to Masha, which transliterates to Moses, Exodus chapter 14, verse 13 to 14, he said to them, "Fear ye not, stand still and see the salvation of Yahweh. These Egyptians that you see here today, they will not have power over you ever again." Right? Will not have power over you ever again. But here's the kicker. The Most High will fight for you, but you have to hold your peace. The Hebrew word that you will see there is karash, which means be quiet. Can't go back. Can't stay here. Keep moving forward. Shalom.
Listen, Genesis chapter 11, verse 10 explains the genealogy of Shem. Shem was a black man in Africa. If you repeat this back, Genesis 14, verse 13, Abraham steps on the scene. Being a descendant of Shem, which is a fact, means Abraham too was black. Abraham, born in the city of a black man, called Nimrod, grandson of Ham. Ham had 4 sons. One was named Canaan. Here, let me do some explaining. Abraham, Isaac was Jacob had 12 sons, for real, and these were the children of Israel. According to Genesis chapter 10, these were the children of Israel. According to Genesis chapter 10.